business, they never really say how they got there, and then people try to do it themselves, and then they end up like me. Because see, I watched all those videos. I was going to be one of those people. They make it seem easy. It's not easy. It's a nightmare. What's up, everybody? I'm Amy. This is Ashley, and together we are the Beauty Pros. So, my business journey to starting the salon was actually very, I don't even know how to say it. It was just not the way you should start a business. We moved to Shelbyville. When I say we, me and my husband and my pets moved to Shelbyville back in 2013. And the reason we moved to Shelbyville is because we had some financial issues, and they were foreclosing on our home. And so my dad had called the house right next door to my dad. They were in a similar situation, but they had to file bankruptcy instead. So they didn't want to sell their home, but they lived in a different state at the time. They didn't want to leave the house vacant. So my dad calls me on the phone and says, "Well, do you all want to move to Shelbyville?" And we had been discussing moving out of Louisville for a while, but that was a big leap. I mean, I lived in Louisville my whole entire life, right? So it was like, and Stephen, at this point in time, he was unemployed. So, I mean, pretty much everything was open to him. But I worked in Louisville. So it was like, that's a long drive. At the time, that was a long drive for me. So um, we said yes because the price was right. We were renting this house for little to nothing. So we ended up moving to Shelbyville. And about, I would say maybe 8 months into it, I got tired of driving back and forth to Louisville every single day. So I decided that I was going to get a job out here in Shelbyville. And so I went to different salons. And I mean, as much as I hate to say it, I don't piss anybody off, but I didn't feel welcome. None of the salons made me feel like that they wanted me there. I mean, that's sad to say, but it is the truth, and I'm not gonna lie. So, but I just, yeah, it was like, so then I toyed with the idea of not doing hair at all. I was gonna quit doing hair altogether, and I don't know, something inside of me. I was driving down Washington Street, and I seen this for rent sign at my first salon, which was in the basement of, I don't even know what it is right now. I think it's an insurance office, maybe.
Right.
But it's Operation Care owned the building at the time, and it's a 3 levels. The very top level of it was a women's shelter. The middle level at that time was a church, and then the bottom level is what they wanted to rent out. So I was driving down, I seen that sign, and something inside of me said, "Call." So I picked up the phone, I called, and when I heard how much they were renting it out, that was it. I was just like, sold. It's me. So so I went. I didn't even go home. I mean, it all happened so fast. Like within the span of an hour, I went up to Operation Care. I signed the lease. I had no business plan, no nothing. And so I'm back in my car and I'm driving home and I'm thinking, oh, what did I just do? You know, it's like Steven's gonna kill me. So I get home and I pull in the driveway and I walk into the house and I'm like, I'm opening my own beauty supply shop. And Stephen was like, "Oh, okay," you know, because I mean, we were in foreclosure. Our credit was horrible, and he's just like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "No, for real, I am," because I signed a lease. And boy, if you could have seen his face. He was like, "You did what?" I was like, "I'm gonna open up a beauty supply shop here in Shelbyville because there's no Sally's, there's no supply shop for anybody that owns a salon out here close to go to except for Frankfurt or Louisville." And so that was my my business model. Yeah, that was like the beginning of how I was going to open up my business. So then I get into this building and it's just hideous. I mean, it's a basement, but it had orange walls, like penny orange walls. It had a concrete floor. I mean, and it was a much like this concrete floor here in our basement. That's where we're at, in our basement. That's our studio. But I mean, and it was just like, what the hell did I get myself into? I mean, I had no shelving, I had no products to sell, I had no nothing. So I pulled a old desk that was left in that house. I moved it over with my computer, my phone, and I was there from sun up to sundown. And sometimes I would just sleep in that office chair because I was so wore out. But it was all it it was God. I mean, I was being led by God. That's all I can say because I had no idea what I was doing. I've never owned a business. I've toyed around with starting businesses because I've always had that entrepreneur spirit, right? But I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And it was just all God leading me.
So do we ever know what we're doing?
No.
No.
I never do. So I took it step by step. And I was like, okay, first thing I need to do is fix this place up to where it looks halfway decent. So I painted everything. I painted the concrete floor, the walls were like that block concrete. Mm-hmm. That's a pain in the ass to paint. If I never have to paint block concrete again, that would be too soon, right? Like, it was horrible. So I painted the walls, I painted the floor, I cleaned everything up. And upon cleaning stuff up, I noticed there was working plumbing that had been cut off. I don't know what they used that downstairs for, but it was almost like they had a deep sink in a certain part of the place. So of course my hairstylist mind's going around, but I was opening up a beauty supply shop, so not a hair salon. So I sat at that desk, and it was like, all right, how do I get products? That's how I broke it down. And then I started just cold calling manufacturers, distributors, saying, hey, I have a beauty supply shop, and I'd love to carry your products, but of course they wanted money, and I don't have that. And so my dad was kind of the mastermind behind some of the steps that I took, because I would go to him. It's like now I will say this, they gave me a month to get it going. So I had a whole month that I did not have to pay rent. So I had a month to get the shop up and running, to make some kind of money so I could pay rent. And so it's like, Dad, how do I get products in here? And he's like, consignment. Call them and ask them if you can do consignment. And if you don't sell it, give it back to them. And I'm like, they're never going to, these are big beauty brand companies. They're never going to fall for that, And, but that gave me the idea of calling around trying to get like shelving for the place. It wasn't so much consignment, but just used shelving. So I started looking up like used store shelving, and some dude that was in Indiana had like a Goodwill. It wasn't a Goodwill, but it was his version of a Goodwill, and he had all kinds of old gondola shelving. And if you don't know what gondola shelving is, it's that metal shelving in the store where you can take the shelf, that's got the holes all on the shelf. That's what gondola shelving is. So that's what I did. I just went and I got all used shelving and put it in there. So now I've got all this shelving, and it's bare, right? So Cindy, my stepmother, bless her heart, she didn't want to do it, but she did it out of the kindness of her heart. She loaned me $1,500 so I could get some type of products in there. And I told her, I said, I will pay you back. So she had faith in me, and I have to give it to her because nobody else was willing to give me any money, right? And everything I was making in the shop, salon wise, was going straight into that store. So I started out with like, not product wise, because product's very hard to get to sell. I started out with like clips, perm rods, rollers, bobby pins, brushes, combs, stuff like that, right?
All of your, what is it called, sundries?
Sundries, or I call them sundries, but yeah, I think they're sundries.
Sundries.
And the other stuff is your wet line. So that's how I kind of started out with that. But when you're an already established salon, you have your brands that you stick with.
Right.
So if I've not really got a brand that they want, what would they possibly need to come in for, except for like gloves or foils or something like that, right? So I was like, there's got to be another way that I can get people in the store. Chime my dad, he's like, put a sign out front and offer $5 haircuts. And I'm like, Dad, I was like, if I seen a sign that said $5 haircuts, I'd probably turn and run the other direction. You can't possibly get a good haircut for $5, right? I mean, that's what was going through my mind. Like, nobody's going to do that.
Right.
So I was like, well, screw it. I will. So I put a sign outside that said $5 haircuts. And in the meantime, while I'm sitting there, in my office, side note, I can remember one time I'm sitting in my office and I'm so dead tired. I've got my feet propped up on my desk and I'm leaning back in this chair, and I wake up, I open up my eyes, and some man just standing there. It startled me to death. It was the UPS man dropping off packages for him. But it scared me to death, and I was like, what? I was like, what in the world? It scared me to death. He's like, I'm just dropping off packages. I was like, okay. So, but yeah, so anyway, so I put the sign outside that said $5 haircuts. And then, of course, I posted it on Facebook and all that. And when I first started the whole beauty supply shop, I'd just get on Facebook and friend request anybody that lived in Shelbyville. Because I wanted people to see it that were in the area, So half of the people on my Facebook friends list, I have no idea who they are. So if you're watching, I'm sorry, but I needed eyes on my business venture. So eventually, people started coming in getting $5 haircuts, and the way that I went about it is because I didn't have a sink. I had a salon chair and a mirror set up in the back with a spray bottle, and I was doing $5 haircuts. Well, I mean, because I'm not shabby at what I do, word got out that, hey, I do good haircuts. So as I'm trying to build this beauty supply store, I'm also doing hair on the side. But then I started getting color in, right? Like color that you could get at Sally's. So, things like that, that's non-professional products. And people would start coming in slowly but surely wanting to do stuff to their own hair. And they would ask me questions and tell me how they were going to go about doing it. And I'm like, oh, please, God, don't do that. Please don't do that. How about I do it for you? So then it was like, how am I going to get a sink in here? Hence the plumbing, right? And I was like, hallelujah, I've got plumbing here. I could just hook up the sink, because I already had all this. When I was in Louisville, I had a little salon in my basement. So all that went with me. So I just moved all that stuff that I had sitting around from a salon in Louisville, my basement salon in Louisville, and I moved it over to that shop. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it just started like that. I mean, slowly but surely adding more stuff, because I really had it in my heart. I was done with hair and I was going to do a beauty supply shop. That's really what I wanted to do.
Right.
But me doing hair on the side kept me afloat. So I was trying to build on the beauty supply end of it, while everybody else had in mind that I was going to be a salon.
Right.
And so I just kind of morphed it into both. And yeah, I did that for I think I was in that building for 2 years. And if anybody had ever went into that building, it was night and day from the very beginning to when I moved. I had a hairdresser working for me named Nikki, and she was an amazing artist. Like, she could draw and paint like nobody else's business. And I had her do a big, more, is that how you say it? Mural, a mural on the floor.
Yeah.
Of a woman, and her hair was flowing, but the hair that flowed all through the store. It was the coolest thing. So I was in the basement for about 2 years, and I'll never forget the day that they came in to tell me that they weren't going to renew my lease. Now, at this time, I had 2 hairdressers and a wonderful receptionist / office manager by the name of Angela. She was amazing. And she comes and gets me. I was in the office, and she came and got me and said that they Operation Cares manager was out there and wanted to talk to me. So they told me that they were not going to renew my lease. that they wanted to use the building for themselves. And I'm thinking, well, of course you do. I fixed it up and now you want it back. So I had to find another place to move a beauty supply shop and a hair salon. And if you know anything about Shelbyville, there's not a whole lot of options.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, this is going to be horrible. And I didn't want to shut down because I had employees I had to think about, and I went through hell to open this place up just to close it down 2 years later. So I drove by and seen a for rent sign on that corner house there on Washington across from the Catholic Church for rent. So I was like, well, it's not big enough for both. What do I do? And so I decided that the salon was making me more money, and that's what I was going to go with. Plus, my 2 hairdressers, I'm not going to say, hey, by the way, I'm going to just keep the beauty supply spot here, and then you all have to go find a new job. So, yeah, so it just turned into a full-fledged salon when I finally moved into that white house. And it was a house. So it took a little bit of conversion, but I did it. And that is where I met Ashley. And she can tell you the story about how she met me.
That's all we have for today. We have so much more coming. So if you like content like this,
Slap that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So you'll be alerted to all of these crazy videos we've got in store for you. That's a good one. Yeah. And just remember to always enjoy.
if you'd like to book an appointment with us, I'll put our information here on the screen. You can book at www.beautyprosalon.com. You can also call or text us on the numbers provided to you on the screen. Mic check, 1, 2.
Or you're going to be sitting that way the whole time.
No.
Hey everybody, how are you doing?
Hello.
No entiendo.
I understand that, but I mean, do you want to enter? I mean, I don't understand.
Book an appointment with us. You can do so on
Do 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 do.
That's all we have for today, but we want to thank you for clicking on this video. You didn't have to.
You didn't have to.
You didn't have to.
Do you want me to do that?
No.